Excellency, Mr. President, sir, Your Excellency, Deputy President, Your Excellency, Prime Cabinet Secretary, and of Public Service, Cabinet Secretaries present and Governors present, a good morning to everyone. I know friends have been making a joke that Karuti is going to take us to Singapore. And indeed, that's what we want to discuss here. Professor Anyang and Michael Chega have already pointed out that this is possible. Your Excellency, Mr. President, sir, when we began this job with Professor Anyang, we all did recognize that this is about Kenya. It has nothing to do with us as individual independent experts, independent researchers. We said this is a commitment we want to make, to commit our resources, to commit our intellectual ideas into producing a document that can help guide the country in developing this roadmap. And in doing so, of course, we had consultations with the State Department of Planning and of Public Service, Prime Cabinet Minister Office and his team. We had consultations and we have reviewed massive reports, global reports, Government of Kenya reports, reports by different other departments. And that is our role as academics and as researchers. So this guideline that we are producing here, and for my apology that we couldn't produce a PowerPoint because of the people at the back, and some of them don't eat enough carrots anyway. Your Excellency, we thought the best thing to do is to start with by looking at Vision 2030. What have we achieved? What are the gaps? And we realize that actually when you pay attention to Vision 2030, a lot of ground has been covered. We are not where we were in the 1990s. Infrastructure has expanded. Education and health expansion is something that we can see everywhere. And of course, Kenya is leading in terms of digital revolution. There's no one in the world today studying or teaching finance inclusion in any university who does not cite Kenya and M-Pesa. And if you are writing on finance inclusion for your PhD and you don't cite that, a good examiner should fail you. But there are, of course, things that we have not achieved under Vision 2030. We are not where we were supposed to be in terms of having a middle income country, an industrialized country, Mr. President, sir. Poverty and inequality remain a big challenge. And of course, we did not achieve a double-digit growth. David can tell us the reasons for that, but I won't allow him that time. A major challenge, of course, and we are very honest in this, public sector reforms that initiated the undertaking and implementation of Vision 2030 are a pale image of what they were before. I am afraid that when we review what is happening across the continent, everybody says we borrowed performance contracting from Kenya. But when you talk to Kenya's public servants and when you do research in Kenya, a lot is going now. Many published documents now say Kenyans are ticking boxes. Performance contract is no longer taken seriously. It's about ticking boxes. And we conclude that to move Kenya forward, we must pay attention to public sector reforms. If we don't do that, then this journey is not going to take off in a good way. The other thing that we find is integrity and behavior, ethical behavior among Kenyans. That leaves again requires something that we need to internalize so that we can have Kenyans who are committed to values of integrity and honesty and doing the right things even when no one is watching you. Because that is called honesty. Your Excellency, you asked Professor Anyang to do one thing, to answer one question. How do we transform Kenya into the first world nation within the life of a generation? And when you asked him that, he assembled us and said, I've been asked a very difficult question here. Karuti, Chege, and Wanyande, how do we answer it? Then we said, let's begin. And what we have done then is actually to think that you are right. This question is worth paying attention to. Because from 1963, when you look at Kenya, we start very well, do the right things, but relapse. Stop, go, stop becomes a characteristic of Kenya's nation. When you look at Southeast Asia, as Professor Nyanga said, almost everyone was coming to look at what is happening in Kenya and saying, this is what we want to do. They took off and they left us behind. And this is what we call Kenya's paradox of doing exceptionally very well at times and not proceeding with continuity. Policy discontinuity becomes a key feature of our country. A key feature of our country. Now, the problem is, in the West, there's no social scientist in any university who does not know what is called the Kenyan debate. And if you are a serious scholar, you should know what Kenyan debate is. This is a debate of the 1970s and the early 80s that everyone in the world studying development was asking one simple question. How did a country like Kenya manage to transform so well and leave everyone else in Africa behind? The example cited was Kenya and Ivory Coast. And this is something cited everywhere. Kenya was doing right, and that's why everyone was coming to study from us. At the same time, if you look at the development literature again, we were ahead of China. We outperformed China for many years until 1991 in terms of per capita income. Each of you here would have hired 2 Chinese and put change in the pocket. Up to 1991. That's true. Indonesia the same. Actually, we were ahead of China up to 1992, David. 1992. In terms of everything. So the point is, we can make it because we have made it before. But why is it that we have not made it? Your Excellency, Prime Cabinet Secretary, my friend. There are several reasons we have identified as independent scholars again. And forgive me because some of these realities may be harsh. One, everybody in the world, those who study development studies, acknowledge that Kenya's civil service was the best in the continent. And today, look at World Bank statistics. They say that Kenya's human capital is the best, and in fact, we outcompete everyone. That's why there is business or processing offices being set up on the continent. Language alone. And by the way, my students also write now PhDs for others for a fee. Right? Acknowledged widely. It's covered everywhere that Kenyan students write for those in Europe, America, Australia, for their PhDs, recognizing that we have got a very good human capital index here. But our civil service, again, as I said, when you look at studies that are coming out, there is the skilling that seems not to be at par with what we had in civil service many years back. We need to start reflecting on that. Where did we go wrong and what did we need to re-engineer our civil service and our bureaucracy? At the same time, there's lack of policy consistency. We seem to have every election stop some policies, start again. Some governors, Your Excellency, even abandon projects by other governors in order to start their own. This becomes common everywhere in the country. And it's public resources that are being used for the same purpose. This is being done even when there is county integrated development plans, CIDPs, and 10-year annual plans. Kenya is a country of paradox. And we say in our report that we are a country of false starts. Many false starts. From independence, we've been doing well, we stop. Then we start again doing exceptionally very well, we stop. And everybody comes to copy Kenya. Every time copying Kenya, and they leave us. Rwanda has copied everything, including our transport, Mr. President, sir. Including how we started organizing borders. But they take and engineer it and move forward. That's the problem we have. So we need to see how best also to improve coordination across government departments. In our reading for this report, in our research for this report, our team has looked at different government agencies. And Your Excellency, Mr. President, sir, let me say with a lot of honesty, there is silos mentality, competition, silos approach. People compete every day, but they don't compete for impact. All of you here, you compete every day, but not for impact or for service delivery. That's what our report is showing. Everybody has a turf. I'm protecting my turf. And we are being very candid as well. We are independent researchers. Well, what do we do? But we have got a lot of work to do. And I think we can because we've done it before. And we have realized actually some countries now in South America, Peru and Chile, have actually done it in about 25 years or less. Not 30 years that we are talking about. We did all this before we finished our report, but when we continued with research, we realized Latin American countries, some of them have done it in 25 years. So it can be done, especially by Kenya, that has been copied by everybody else. Now, let Karuti Kanyinga now take you to the first world, Mr. President, sir. Let me take you to Singapore now. When Mr. President, you said, let's go to Singapore, everybody has been talking about Singapore as if it's the real country we are talking about. I think what we have realized is that Singapore is actually a metaphor, a shorthand for high-income industrialized countries. And we have realized that actually those countries have a number of factors that are very common among them, and this is what we should aim for. One is world-class education, skills, and innovation. And Kenya was there. That's why everybody looks at our human capital index and says, I would like to hire Kenyans. By the way, even xenophobia in South Africa is not touching Kenyan professionals. You touch them, some industries in South Africa will collapse. You touch some business sector in East Africa, some countries which are not named in East Africa will not move because Kenyan professionals are managing them. The second thing is high incomes, human capital index, and high quality of life. Life expectancy in these countries is very high. It's over 70 in Southeast Asia, 84 in Singapore, 84 in Europe and several other countries. But in Kenya, here is 64. I can see some friends who are above 64, so you are lucky. Right? They are also characterized by functional service delivery. Services are provided in a very functional manner. You cannot complain about services because the public servants serve the public. They don't compete. They compete actually to serve. And integrity is a common feature. Professionalism is very high. Rule of law. Countries governed by law, where you know very well that this is predictable if I do a mistake. And by the way, we were there in the 70s. Those who came to Nairobi in the 70s, remember that very period. clean country, a country being one of the best in the region. And the poverty, of course, is eradicated. But most important, revenue is generated in a very transparent manner, and the citizens do not fail to pay taxes because they know that if they do so, their services will not be provided. When I was studying for my PhD in Denmark, there's an old lady who took the local municipality to court for not collecting tax from her. Because she said the pothole she's found on the road was the result of these people who have not collected my tax for 2 months. I don't know how the case went because it was in Danish language. So what did these countries do to have all these features? Mr. President, let me just identify a few things, very few things. One, they began by emphasizing integrity in the society. Honesty is embedded and institutionalized at any level. People do the right things even when no one is watching you. That becomes a common practice, whether in darkness or in open daylight. We all know the story of the wallet and the money inside, where it was put in different countries, and including Mombasa, with the names of people, money, and the rest. It was testing integrity. Just which countries money got lost, and of course you got the wallet, right? Not us, of course. In Kenya, I think the wallet was taken back, but with the names of the people. But that was testing integrity. But the countries in Scandinavia, all of them returned everything. Money, business accounts, and everything. In America, it did not happen that way, sorry. So integrity becomes a very common feature. But they also started on very good policies, and I would like to wind up very quickly and go back to what we need to do. They committed to long-term policies and vision. And every vision they had transcended government. Government would come and meet the same plan. Political parties would compete on how do we, and their manifestos, this is what citizens have accepted as a development plan. We are competing now on how to reach that vision as parties. Government would change, but the direction and the vision would remain the same every time. Governments were also very central. It is governments that were guiding the private sector by giving correct policies and financing private sector. And even when financing private sector for export, private sector was disciplined. You are told we are giving you money for export, but in a disciplined manner, you must produce ABCD. And they started with agriculture, moved it to industries, and then moved it to technology. And then, of course, human capital development. Mr. President, Kenya can get there by paying attention to three things as three pillars. Our report identifies three key pillars that are very critical. We begin with agriculture, but improve on agro-processing, touch on irrigation, and food security. So that once people are food secure, then they get concerned about savings and other things. We must think about industrialization, as Professor Anyang' Nyong'o said, but industrialization for export. The region is becoming bigger, but we are the only country that is equipped with the responsibility, that is properly equipped to compete in this region. But what are we doing? Manufacturing is shrinking. We are getting competition from different places. Technology and innovation is the other pillar we are talking about. But if we want to succeed, integrity, state effectiveness, and ethical behavior must be the key things to govern our society. We cannot talk about world-class education without talking about ethical behavior. Every day, everywhere. Mr. President, these are the pillars that we are proposing here. We are going forward here and recommending that moving forward, Mr. President, Let's begin with national consultations and consensus building on this vision. We should have a vision that outlives electoral cycles. But in order to secure this vision permanently, it is important we think about having a national development law that secures the vision every time so that it is not disrupted by anyone at any particular time. This long-term vision will always be our destination, and then whatever we do in between will be focusing on that destination. Mr. President, there is need to think about establishing the National Economic, Social and Social Council as the apex institution with an appointed person, appointed by His Excellency the President, to be advising and guiding on how to achieve this destination on regular basis. But we must strengthen coordination, and the silos mentality should come to an end. And after doing that, Your Excellency, then State Department of Planning and other agencies can start preparing sectoral transformation strategies. But we begin with national ownership, participation, and consultations across the country and with different sectors so that we carry the country as one. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you very much, everyone.